Day 11. Letting go of the past. There comes a point in almost every personal growth journey when a person realizes that the greatest obstacle standing between who they are and who they want to become is not located in the future. It is located in the past. Many people spend years trying to build a better life while carrying emotional weight that was never meant to be carried for so long. Some hold on to mistakes they made years ago. Others remain attached to disappointments, failures, regrets, or opportunities they wish they had pursued differently. Some continue reliving conversations they cannot change, decisions they wish they could undo, or moments that ended differently than they had hoped. The past has a remarkable ability to remain present when it has not been fully processed. Although time moves forward, the mind often returns to unfinished emotional experiences. It revisits old memories, replays familiar stories, and imagines alternative outcomes that can never be tested. In doing so, it creates the illusion that revisiting the past will somehow change it. Of course, it never does. No amount of regret can alter a decision that has already been made. No amount of guilt can rewrite a conversation that has already taken place. No amount of wishing can transform yesterday into something different. Yet people continue carrying these burdens because part of them believes they should. Sometimes guilt feels like accountability. Sometimes regret feels like wisdom. Sometimes holding on feels safer than moving forward. The difficulty is that what begins as reflection can gradually become imprisonment. Instead of learning from the past, a person begins living inside it. They define themselves by old mistakes. They measure their future against previous disappointments. They allow events that happened years ago to influence decisions being made today. Over time, the past stops being a place they visited and becomes a place they reside. One of the reasons this happens is that many people confuse remembering with understanding. They revisit the same memories repeatedly, but rarely extract new lessons from them. The mind simply follows familiar pathways, replaying the same scenes and generating the same emotions. True reflection serves a purpose. Rumination does not. Reflection asks, what can I learn from this experience? Rumination asks, why did this happen to me? Reflection creates wisdom. Rumination creates exhaustion. Understanding this distinction is important because growth does not require forgetting the past. Some experiences are too meaningful, too painful, or too significant to ever be forgotten completely. The goal is not erasure. The goal is freedom. Freedom comes when the past becomes a source of learning rather than a source of identity. Consider how often people introduce themselves through their wounds. A person may not say it directly, but their internal narrative becomes centered around a particular failure, betrayal, rejection, or disappointment. That experience gradually becomes the lens through which they interpret new situations. Someone who experienced betrayal may struggle to trust. Someone who failed publicly may hesitate to take risks. Someone who experienced rejection may avoid vulnerability. While these responses are understandable, they often continue long after the original event has ended. The past remains active because its emotional influence has never been fully released. One of the most important truths to understand is that your experiences and your identity are not the same thing. You may have failed, but that does not make you a failure. You may have made poor decisions, but that does not mean poor decisions define you. You may have experienced rejection, disappointment, or loss, but those experiences do not determine your worth. Unfortunately, many people spend years merging what happened to them with who they are. The result is a version of identity built around history rather than possibility. Yet growth requires a different perspective. It requires acknowledging the past without allowing it to dictate the future. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase everywhere you go. At first, the weight feels manageable. Over time, however, it becomes exhausting. It slows your progress, drains your energy, and makes every journey more difficult than it needs to be. Eventually, you reach a point where you have a choice. You can continue carrying it, or you can put it down. The interesting thing about emotional baggage is that much of its weight comes not from the original experience, but from our continued attachment to it. We keep replaying it. We keep identifying with it. We keep treating it as evidence of who we are. As a result, we continue carrying something that no longer serves us. Letting go does not mean pretending something never happened. It does not mean approving of what occurred. It does not mean denying pain. Letting go means accepting that the event cannot be changed and choosing not to allow it to control the rest of your life. This process often requires courage because the familiar, even when painful, can feel strangely comfortable. People become accustomed to certain stories about themselves. They become accustomed to viewing life through particular experiences. Moving beyond those stories requires stepping into uncertainty. Who will I be if I stop defining myself by this experience? What if I no longer carry this resentment? What if I no longer use this mistake as evidence of my limitations? These questions can feel unsettling because they invite transformation, yet they also create possibility. The future cannot be fully embraced while one hand remains firmly attached to the past. At some point, growth requires release, not because the past was insignificant, but because the future deserves space to exist. This does not happen in a single moment. For some experiences, letting go is a gradual process. It may require repeated decisions, honest reflection, difficult conversations, or simply the passage of time combined with intentional effort. What matters is the direction. Each time you choose learning over regret, acceptance over resistance, and growth over attachment, you take another step forward. You begin creating a relationship with the past that supports your future rather than limiting it. As you continue this journey, remember that your life is not defined by your worst day, your biggest mistake, or your greatest disappointment. Those experiences are chapters. They are not the entire story. And no matter how difficult previous chapters may have been, you still have the opportunity to influence the ones that have yet to be written. Reflection questions. 1. What past experience do you find yourself revisiting most often? 2. What lesson have you learned from that experience? 3. Are you reflecting on the event or simply reliving it? 4. How has this experience influenced the way you see yourself today? 5. What might become possible if you release some of the emotional weight you have been carrying? Daily action step. Choose one past mistake, disappointment, or regret that continues to occupy space in your mind. Write about it honestly. Then answer 2 questions. What did this experience teach me? What would it look like to carry the lesson without carrying the burden? Keep your answer and revisit it whenever you notice yourself returning to the same regret. Success affirmation. I honor the lessons of my past without allowing them to define my future. I release what no longer serves me and create space for growth, healing, and new possibilities.